Hi guys, how you all doing? Welcome to the Newcastle United training ground, a blustery Newcastle United training ground this morning. It's match day -1 ahead of Newcastle against Arsenal at St James's Park tomorrow night. Huge game, feels like probably the biggest game of the season so far as Newcastle take a 2-0 lead into that semi-final second leg with a place at Wembley up for grabs. Huge night. We're anticipating at St James's Park tomorrow with them holding that 2-0 lead from the first leg, and I've been here speaking to Eddie Howe this morning, looking ahead to the game, but also reflecting on what has been a very frustrating transfer window. You probably see that I look a bit tired under the eyes. That is because I was in that press room here doing a live last night at I think 11 o'clock, maybe 11:30. Didn't get home till after 12 last night. Back here this morning to speak to Eddie at 8:15. Probably should have slept in here last night, but anyway, I'm going to provide a video from the warmth and the calmness of my car, and we'll talk about what Eddie's had to say this morning on all things transfer window and Arsenal tomorrow night. There we are, in the safety of the car. It was getting a little bit blustery outside, so I thought I would come in here. As I touched on earlier, feeling a little bit tired today. It was a long old transfer deadline day for me without anything to talk about. Yeah, it felt, I've got to say, it felt a little bit like transfer deadline days of the past, pre-takeover, when I was stood out here at the training ground for hours on end, every deadline day, just to say nothing was happening. But the last couple of years have obviously been a bit better since the takeover went through, but I've got to say it has felt a bit flat the last couple of transfer windows, and none more so than yesterday when I actually wasn't on live until 4 p.m. So you know, I think that's reflective of what's happened to Newcastle this transfer window, and Eddie Howe was asked a number of questions on that this morning. He didn't want to give too much of a definitive. I don't think he knows a definitive as to how much they will have to spend on the summer on the back of the sales of Almiron and Kelly yesterday. Look, I don't think anyone knows that yet. I've noticed a few people banding a few figures around. I think that's easy to do, but you've got to remember with transfers, it's not just the transfer fee. I mean, yeah, Newcastle could receive up to £20 million for Lloyd Kelly, but you've got to remember they got him for free in the summer. He was a high earner because they got him for free, so his wages would have been built into this deal. They've obviously paid his wages for a number of months now. The agent fees in the summer, which would have been high, absolutely they would have been high, because you know, that move alone yesterday to Juventus, I think netted the agents around about £3 million. So you wouldn't be surprised if it was similar for his move to Newcastle in the summer. And all that needs to be affected in the transfer. So yes, they're receiving up to £20 million, but the book price isn't as high as that due to the fact that the other costs have got to be factored in. And these are things I think that a lot of people need to remember, and it's things like that that are costing Newcastle. And Eddie was actually asked today more about the Kelly situation, and it was quite interesting what he had to say, because I think there was a feeling that Almiron had to go to balance the books, but that if another one was sold, and of course Kelly was sold, but yeah, it comes into effect in the summer, was there the opportunity then to go and spend yesterday and try and bring someone in last minute, even if it was a loan signing? Eddie said this morning, he said no. He says we essentially needed to sell him. It didn't give us any didn't give us any more headroom for January. Now I think it will give them headroom for the summer, but it didn't allow them to enter the market yesterday and buy someone, which I'm sure a few of you guys would have wanted yesterday, because it does feel a bit flat, and I think the last couple of home performances against Bournemouth and Fulham have highlighted that staleness that Eddie Howe's mentioned recently. I mean, there's nothing better than a new signing brought into any group, really. I think it does bring a freshness. It brings a new voice. It changes the dynamic and the chemistry. Even if they're not going to come in and play straight away, you've seen what the likes of signing, you know, these big name players that Newcastle have done for them in recent times. What Bruno's done, what he's done for Joe Linton, for example. You know, bringing in Isak, who seems like a different sort of character, but he brings something different to the group. And look, I really think even just one signing in January would have helped matters. But as Eddie said this morning, they were unable to do that, and it was always about, in his words, managing the departures and judging that against the potential for injury to try and, he didn't say muddle through, but just to try and get to the end of the season with what they've got. And he said even the sale of Kelly yesterday didn't alter things, didn't mean that we could then go out and buy a player on transfer deadline day, which I thought was quite interesting. So he did say, look, they'll address the situation over the next few weeks and look into it, and then try and work out what they're going to have at their disposal in the summer. It feels to me a little bit like they might be able to sort of take advantage of the PSR the cut-off point at the end of June. Obviously, we saw last year Newcastle having to sell both Yankuba Minton and Elliot Anderson to balance the books. Perhaps they're in a stronger position now to go and take advantage in that situation of teams who maybe need to sell. However, on the flip side of that, I've got myself questioning it a little bit, because Eddie's saying today that they needed to sell Lloyd Kelly and couldn't go out there and replace him, would suggest to me that they're not able to do that, because the up to June 30th comes into the same 3-year accounting period. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm not sure if Eddie actually knows fully himself yet, and I think a lot of it is just kind of passed down to him, and he needs to manage the situation. But then, you know, he was asked if it frustrates him, and you know, why is he not getting himself angry? And he said, well, look, at the end of the day, I'm representing a football club, and I can't be sort of stomping my feet and getting angry at every decision. I've got to do my best with the situation that we find ourselves in. And he's obviously repeated that a number of times. What I think he was keen to do today, though, was not to sort of, I know, although he answered all the questions as he does with a smile as well, and I think he was keen today not to hover too much on the issues with PSR and the transfer window, and to try and throw things forward to tomorrow's game against Arsenal. Because look, without a doubt, it's Newcastle's biggest game of the season. You've got a trip to Wembley if you manage to get through. I can sense some nerves in the air speaking to fans. Nerves, is that the right word? It's probably stronger than that. Brought me back to the gentleman who you can probably see on my profile picture, not my profile picture, on my thumbnail there. You might remember him. I remember doing a live with him outside Wembley at the final 2 years ago. Put the mic under his face and he just started crying straight away because he was so nervous. So I thought I would just put him back up there. Ironically, when my partner and I had a baby back in August, one of the midwives actually said, "Did you interview my dad at Wembley?" I said, "I don't know who was it." She goes, "He was the guy that started crying." So one of the midwives that helped deliver our baby back in at the end of August is the daughter of the guy on my thumbnail there. So there's a little side for you. There's a little interesting story. Hope I see him again. I hope he's less nervous. I hope he's not too nervous tomorrow night. I hope he's got his emotions in check. But interesting what Eddie Howe had to say on the nerve side of things today. He's asked the fans and the players to turn those nerves into excitement. He says, look, I've looked back on Saturday. I've not gone too in depth on it because I know I've had the game so soon afterwards. He said he wanted to feel the defeat. He said he wanted to feel how it made him feel and the players feel, and then try and absorb that defeat and try and use that information to help him going forward. But he says, look, a couple of days later, I've recovered, I'm ready to go, I'm excited with what's to come, and we need to just kind of see this as a one-off game. And it is a one-off game, and it's an interesting one because it's a second leg with a 2-0 lead. Now, yes, a 2-0 lead is dangerous, but as he rightly said this morning, he would much rather go into this with a 2-0 lead than not. What I would say is, if I was Arsenal, and you guys won't want to hear this, I'm sure you'll probably agree with me, that if you're Arsenal and Mikel Arteta, you're looking at that thinking, oh, they've just lost at home to Fulham, they've just lost at home to Bournemouth since we last played. we can go there and win. We've got better players in those two teams, and I think Arteta will put his big guns out tomorrow night, and he might not have done that if Newcastle had won those games and we're still flying. He might have seen the task as insurmountable, but I think he'll look at it now and think we can actually do this. So Newcastle need to be aware of that. They need to be ready for Arsenal's best team. You know that Eddie will play his best team available to him, because as I say, it's up there with probably the biggest game of the season in terms of what's at stake. I think you'll get the job done. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. I don't think you're going to coast through 2 or 3-0 or anything like that. But I think you'll get done. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw. I could see a draw happening, and then you getting through by a couple of goals. Listen, I think even now, if someone handed you the option of a 2-1 defeat or a 3-2 or a 1-0, you'd probably take it to ensure you're through to the final. But look, the performance needs to improve a lot from Saturday, and I think with it being an evening match under the lights, the big players turn up against the big teams. I think it'll be a different prospect, and I think Newcastle should get there. I just don't think it'll be plain sailing. I saw someone responded to one of my my videos here the other day saying that Newcastle need to get a roof over the stadium and black it out and make sure every game looks like it's dark with the floodlights on, to ensure that you win every game, because it feels like you perform a lot differently in those occasions than, say, a lunchtime kick-off on a Saturday, or now a 3 o'clock kick-off on a Saturday, as was shown against Fulham at the weekend. But look, it's not just been Saturday games. You've lost at home in the evening matches this season, of course, against West Ham as well. But look, let's not hover on that too much. As Eddie said, let's turn the nerves into excitement. Let's see what's at stake here. Let's make sure they take the game to Arsenal. Don't try and just hold on to a lead. Let's go and win the game. Take the game to them. Win the game like we usually would. Try and get a goal 1-up. And I think if Newcastle go 1-up, I don't think there's any way back for Arsenal. I really don't. One thing he's touched on earlier, and I mentioned it in my video, is that they need to manage the injury situation due to the reduced numbers with Almiron and Kelly going, and they do look a bit thin on the ground now. They're going to have to be lucky with injuries between now and the end of the season, which obviously is a big risk they've taken. I'm sure you guys have seen it already, but Joe Linton's the big injury doubt for this one tomorrow night. Obviously injured his knee, I think it was, against Fulham on Saturday, taken off, pictured with a knee brace in the training ground here over the weekend. Eddie Howe said he's got the brace off now, but he's a doubt for the game tomorrow night, so we'll wait and see. It'll be interesting to see if he makes it or not. He would be a big loss. He's also someone that, if you lose one of the forward going players, could move further. I mean, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he'd started in one of the front three tomorrow, and you'd brought in maybe a Longstaff or a Miley to start, just to give you a bit extra sort of energy and defensive nous. But it sounds like he's a doubt. Who starts? I think it'll be a toss-up between Longstaff and Miley. I don't think Willock will start. He just didn't quite look 100% on Saturday. I've got a feeling Louis Miley comes into the team. I really do. I've just got a feeling that he looked really good in the cup tie the other week, looked strong, and I think his it's the sort of game I think that would really suit him. So we'll see what happens with Joe Linton. Even if Joe Linton does start, I wouldn't be surprised if he plays further forward, and Miley or Longstaff comes in anyway. So let's wait and see. And then the other big decision he's got to make, of course, is at centre back. I think Sven will play, without doubt. Sven will play. The question is, does he play with Byrne or does he play with Fabian Schär at centre half? It'll be really interesting to see. So that's my thoughts from today's press conference, guys. But as Eddie said a couple of times there, turn those nerves into excitement, and that's his message to the players and the fans ahead of what is going to be a huge night at St James's Park tomorrow evening. As I'm talking to you, I'm just looking at Bruno Guimaraes turning up for training, so he looks like he's got a smile on his face. Hopefully you guys too. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Leave your comments below, like and subscribe if you haven't done already, and I'll see you on the next video. Cheers now, bye bye.